newspaper headlines. Now we'll start off with Ghanaian Times. President says charging unapproved fees at SHS errand heads to face sanctions. Also, Parliament will decide the fate of Martin Amidu tomorrow. Then, Auditor General says our block salaries of public institutions for failure to respond to audit queries. Then finally, 21 cops have been dismissed, 31 others reprimanded, and 13 reduced in rank for various offenses last year. And these are the stories on Ghanaian Times. But I think, I mean, it's laudable that the cop situation that has been mentioned, because, you know, oftentimes we ask the question that when they find out some of their members are culpable, what do they do to them? So I'm happy that at least they're letting the public know what went down in the last year, and we hope that certainly in the coming years they'll do the same. But what interests me in this particular one is the fact that they say the percentage, I think it reduced by some 60%, if I'm not mistaken, from what they used to have previously, which means that maybe they're doing something right amongst themselves that we don't know. I'm sure the institution of PIPS has brought some, you know, regulation and enforcement in the system, and we hope that they up their game in the coming years.
If you look at the rank of those who are found culpable, they are most of the time are lower ranks, and you will hardly hear of somebody in the officer ranks who's done anything like that. In those instances, we've been made to know. So does it mirror the kind of training they get at the training colleges or the training schools, the depots? Because that will be a critical matter. If consistently we will have policemen and in some instances military men as well wield guns and attack the same people they're supposed to be protecting, then you want to ask yourself, what manner of training goes to them which will make them so susceptible to such temptations that they would want to now harm or take from the people they're supposed to protect? I am happy that the figures are reducing, but what will be the impact of this reduction on the masses? Okay, so if we're just banding figures about and we're saying that it's reduced from, say, 80 to 60% or 60% to 40%, how do I feel it in my small community around Alajo? So that in future, I won't have a policeman, our likelihood of a policeman holding an AK-47, leading a pack of robbers to come and take what I have worked hard for. That's the most important question at this point.
The figures that are reducing, I am not too enthused about it. What was the number of the police service, in the past? And if you put that side by side with those who might have engaged in certain misbehavior and were removed, and then what is the number now? I don't know what basis the service is saying that the figures are reduced, but good to take action. But you see, if this story is to ignite or reignite the confidence of the public in the police service, I think what we need to rather see, for instance, is the punishment or the, how do I call it, the clearing of those officers we saw on TV who were beating students in Kumasi. These offenses, we did not see them. Well, I don't know if there's any of the public ones that we have seen who is involved in this number. The ones that the police is mentioning, 37 reprimanded, 13 reduced in rank. I have not seen, and I doubt if any member of the public has seen the offense committed by this. But we all saw what happened in Kumasi on TV, And that is the kind of action we want to see, so that we then say that, yeah, this is indeed the police service working to clean the mess in its ranks. But if an officer is involved in any administrative malfeasance and is removed or reduced in rank, and we are told that it is
that's easy to trace.
That's easy to trace.
But let me just, I mean, this particular statistics covers last year, and so obviously then the one you mentioned may not be captured in this. But the offenses,
it should be captured.
Okay, it did happen last year. Okay, so, but it says the offenses were assault on own colleagues, robbery, deserting their duty, undue delay in investigations, lack of civility to the public, and abuse of office, among others. So maybe this catches
but
it.
you
But
see-
the other worry
yeah.
is, you know, the question where after you've reprimanded them, after you've reduced their ranks, after you've actually sacked a few or dismissed a few of them, the ones who are dismissed, they are the people who still carry their guns or their uniforms and perpetrate the wrong because they have acquired a particular attitude or habit of robbery. They're not just going to stop, particularly when you've even dismissed them. They don't have an alternative source of livelihood that they think they can, you know, adopt. So they're going to continue this rampage. What then are you going to really do to make sure that they're out of this system completely? Because if you put them back in their homes and now you don't even have oversight on the activities, then we're even at more danger. So I'm hoping that they also look at that.
It all mirrors to our security structure, and when you talk about it, sometimes then you are looked at with a certain eye. But it is us. The security is about us. They mentioned. You often be told that, oh, the police will apply minimal force. And I dare say that if we didn't have pictorial evidence or the video clips to prove that these should bring evidence or that the police were using graduated force. But what we saw that was not graduated, it was aggravated force. So there's a passionate appeal to the IGP. Maybe good morning to the IGP and to the Director of Operations. We love you. We want you to achieve more. We want you to remain professional. But some of your boys, if you take them out, they have the training, okay? How do we make sure that they are properly integrated into society so that they don't have thoughts of coming back? We watch the American movies where we're told of ex-Marines and ex-Navy SEALs who come back and want to bite the government or the organization because they know all the tricks, they know where to go. And we must start thinking along those lines as well. Good morning, sir.
Right.
Good morning.
Senior high school the news. When I heard the story, I was taken aback. I still doing the. So what is missing?
Yes, the Education Service talking about the fact that some teachers have not submitted the claims, which is what is delaying the disbursement of funds. And I found it laughable because, look, there is supposed to be somebody in charge of free SHS. Aside that, the GES by its own processes says you must send your returns at a certain time. Okay, so there's a district office, there's a regional office, then there's the national office. What happened to those processes? So if the Director General sits there and just crying that the people have not sent the thing, so we are unable to send the money, it begs the question. Then the Director General, then the district director, then the regional director, then even the headmaster in the school, you know, your capacity to perform is questioned. Exactly. Okay, so if we have the process, and I always say that, look, in Ghana we have all the beautiful laws, we have all the nice structures. It is hard to make the institutions work. That's what has become the problem. And to the end that we still elect and post people to manage, which sometimes they mismanage our affairs. It beats my imagination. This is not right. Look, nearly 80-90% of all of us agree that free SHS is a good policy. You may have qualms about the implementation process or some things that are missing, but it doesn't negate the fact that it's a good policy. So if these heads or a few of them are trying to make the thing difficult, you either sanction them properly. I don't believe in the whole thought about just sacking them. Okay, you sack them, who replaces them? Where do they take their knowledge and their expertise and their experience gathered over the years? But then if they are not performing as well, punish them. Let them know that they are not doing what they have been employed to do. So punish them. As heads, they are administrators of the schools. So if I will send my child to Asamankesi Secondary School and I'm not there to feed my child on a daily basis, and government says I will provide food for your child on a daily basis, and some headmaster is not sending the returns so that food will come from the buffer stock, we must deal with the headmaster. We must deal with the headmaster ruthlessly.
Yeah, you must. But on that platform, you know, the president made certain promises, which I would like to mention so that we can hold him to task, because he told us not to be spectators, but be citizens. He says, addressing the teething challenges confronting the free SHS policy, the president said procurement processes were currently ongoing for the award of contracts for the provision of 69,500 mono discs, 13,100 bank beds, furniture for dining halls, staff rooms for teachers, computer laboratories, and the provision of marker boards for classrooms. Again, funding has been secured for the expansion and upgrading of facilities in 75 senior high schools across the country, with construction works on the existing community day schools ongoing. Government beginning this year will also upgrade 42 senior high schools into model school status. So
were there timelines to it?
No. John, even before talking about the timelines, I think that I have seen the Finder publish this story of 75 senior high schools.
Model schools
getting that upgrading.
Right.
What I cannot recall immediately is the time the finder. It was on the front page, and I remember very well. 75 senior high schools to benefit from some upgrading. So if, again, today the president is talking about it, then I guess that the processes have begun, and that very soon we'll see these upgrading.
Right.
But it is not something that the president is saying today. I doubt
it may be a rehash, but the point is the timelines are important. You remember when the free SHS started? A school in Cape Coast, I think University Practice School, so had issues with accommodation, and parents were asked to go and get hostels for their children in the neighboring environment. One, then control is lost. Two, you are not too sure what the children are doing outside school. If the school decides not to put a teacher there, because the teacher is not obliged anyway, what happens to the children? That situation still persists at this point. So if we're now talking about plans are far advanced, beginning this year to upgrade, then you're wondering what's happening to it. And it's not just the university practice example, it's just one of so many. So, and that's why I'm asking for timelines. The president just said it last Saturday at Pope John's. But what is the timeline? Is it by the close of the first quarter, by the second quarter? I mean, just making promises for me doesn't wash for me.
Johnny, there is something...
timelines.
There is something that I think education directors, the Ministry of Education, and all stakeholders should take a particular look at it. And that's particularly with even the district assembly. You see, there are some schools, senior high schools, with projects that have taken off, okay? But the problem has to do with the contractors. You're not too sure whether these contractors have been paid monies to continue the project or they have not been paid. But if you visit some of these schools, the projects are sitting there. Either they are almost at the lintel level or they are off the ground. The contractor is nowhere to be found. The sad thing when you visit some of the areas is that the people who are in charge at the district level, okay, cannot get the contractor to go to site because the contract was given right from Accra.
From the top.
From the top. So the contractor picked his or her bag and went straight to the school without passing through either the education directorate or the district assembly. So he or she straight to the school and starts working. So if such a person is not on site, the district assembly or the education office cannot go and ask him or her, why are you not on site? But some of the visits I took over the weekend, some education office are happy because according to them, some of the contract they are getting now, they have copies. They are copied from Accra to the assembly and to the education directorate. There's a particular school in Upper West where a contractor, Zoko Senior High School, where a contractor is working on a school building, a dining hall complex, and a boys' dormitory. Now, as we're talking now, the students are sleeping in town with the community. And the headmaster told me that last year alone, 5 girls got pregnant and they were expelled.
Wow.
And he said that is the number that was reported. And he told me in the interview that it could be more because some of them find ways to get rid of it. Okay? And so, for me, apart from getting these contracts awarded, I think we should go back to these schools and check the project and see why the contractors are failing to complete.
I think on the note of the pregnancy, I mean, people always take advantage of people, especially if they find a young girl who doesn't come from the Upper West, maybe comes from Bonava region or Kumasi. The parents said, okay, go to school. She's gone to school, nowhere to sleep. Somebody says, okay, perch with me. You give me, I give you. And that's a very sad situation indeed. But I'm happy you mentioned the processes. You know that it is a similar situation with our rubbish or our sanitation drive. So the contracts are given from Accra, okay? And then the man who is supposed to be supervising the thing down there doesn't know anything about it. So he doesn't even know what the details of the contract is. And he can't crack the whip if the contractor is not performing.
He doesn't have control over
the contractor.
Technically, the contract was not between himself.
I don't have a contract with you. Now, the contractor is not performing. You can't call him. Parents come, they insult you because you are the headmaster, and you can't do anything about it. Why do we put people in position and we make them dysfunctional.
Yeah.
Why do we do that? You put people at a certain position and you make them dysfunctional. There are some people who tell you that, oh, as for me, I'm a director, but I have my limits. I can't approve this. And I'm like, wow, you are a director, regional director of education, and you can't approve this. So what are you doing? What's your role? What's your role here?
So
Meanwhile, a party fanatic, and this crosses party, NDC, MPP, all of them. A party fanatic who doesn't even have a first degree sometimes, who's just walking around the Flagstaff house, can take a very powerful decision, and the regional director cannot say foco. What kind of a country are we building?
Let's get, Johnny, interestingly, on that note, the finder says certificates don't guarantee automatic jobs. That's coming from the AGI president. But also, porous borders are fueling insecurity as immigration grapples with serious logistical constraints. Then the president says Ghana needs leaders who translate words into actions. Then CDD also says government is on track.
I think, for me, I think that the government is on track. Just about a few things that are falling short. And I'm happy that on each occasion the president acknowledges that these are the challenges. Let's try and solve the challenges. I'm looking at the speed with which these challenges will be solved, because especially the president said he's in a hurry. We should not just see a hurry in the implementation of the projects or the initiatives, but then the challenges that come along with it, you should also be in a hurry to solve it. So good morning to you, Mr. President.
But yes, Johnny, I'm happy, like you said, with the progress government is making. But also, I think the progress is particularly in certain fields or certain promises they made, like the operationalization or digitalization of most of our institutions, so that we cut away the loopholes and block, all the leakages. So in that, I think that really has been the bane.
Enough to know that governments since '92, when they come, the first 2-3 years, they're always on track. I mean, anybody who has lived in this country and has followed governance will agree that right from Mr. Rawlings, every government that came, the very first 2, 3, 4 years, that government was on track. Until then, it gets into an election, and then it wins power and it stays on, and then the next one and the mess starts. So government is on track, good, but we need to be cautious. The beginnings are always good, the endings have always been the problem.
Let's say happy birthday, belated though, to Mrs. Maud Lamte. It was your birthday last week. Happy birthday to you, and that very glorious day for me because it's my sweet mother's birthday. Comfort. It's your birthday today. Happy birthday to you. Share the day with Kimanta Kekeli, Darlington and Julie Dosty. And it's your birthday today. Happy birthday as well. So my mom, I call her Comfort.
It's your mother's birthday, but you shouted more than her, I'm sure. I'm wondering, are you doing a party for her yourself?
Have you seen?
Oh, I see.
Have you seen my mother shadow? When my mother shadows, you run away.
Okay.
And happy birthday to you, Mom. But guys, we're ranting out that we're talking about road accidents because, of course, we know it took the lives of many people last year, and even this year, it has taken the life of superstar Ebony, who we're mourning this week. But certainly, let's see what you have to say about road accidents in Ghana and how best we can deal with them. Let's rant.
This is what it feels like. The rate of accident and number of casualties have increased in January 2018 as compared to same period last year. And persons killed in January this year is 118, and that of last year is 168. It's more like a 10.43% increase. And there are reports suggesting that accident is the leading cause of death in Ghana. And this have bedeviled successive governments. Do we even see lasting solutions in the offing? This is Baby Rant. Let's keep talking. What's the statistics we are? Then
Maybe I have me papa. What I said, last year Nimpona, there's accident in the door on Crano, and those ones seen this year. Now this year the cry room, but some toss me. Nothing nipper 180 something they were. Not just a bedu December and near way. Now me person me business say, Ghana and penny for no more much year road. Tis a 1 year and were. It's called Sakwa no moon say and yana. Now they in a contract and so a dear Jumana Shannon son. So on to me, your quina, on to me can't company for say, a quina baby, a drone, Yeah, means me because betchem for naga so much omudin dada. Na road nso anya so mode ato ha aka omo ho aka ho. Em na not say yankonko a.
Yet ne say aban we was no officer George contract ni mom na aban ba o say munja yem na me de ma ho.
Bani bibi it's not bad say be aban bibi but now for review contract. Review of contract.
And na the problems ne ba. I just want to show my chance I say wo tua wo de so wo de me jam obi. Into say can you imagine say last year na contract ne da ho a wa ye kwan ne half na aka half ye si jai. Into sure car say if you but then ebesi. Into the brain no ye driver for no way fault. If a man penifo no mo ba no omo ka ho na yesa.
Hwe me 1 me blame your leaders. So we say 2 me blame fake contractors. So as any fake ministers that you work Ghana. So as any me blame fake DVLA lances people mama for lances without even testing them.
And the minister no o tu kwan a enya dia hani kumasi on faka ye fa plane na o de kosi kumasi obekota male na wato aso ntino mo ntan fa kwan ne so hu style a esi ye ekun nipa omo de ye ya o se me driver MP
Your minister until you to Abama assembly man in omo yadan ekeka ho ama se de si omo atimia omo beben ho na atimia hwehwe ne amem na omo akeka tempening phone say na ye
o si ntina ye wa MP ntina me maka say baby to say La Paz at least a hormone a good MP sweet maka say food bridges moon crossing when so ya so ye din ya cross
ye na ya so ye no emu wado sa emu wado
be fast food bridge ne so bi ye na fast food bridge no nti ye na also decide
yes we blame me
in which way
also for me I think say my blame ni my politicians no yes we have to blame
in which way
ya more food bridge just food bridge
before who MP and who contractor obeje contract no why road no be fine obey food bridge I say obehu the youth and the AI ohene o sako say ohene friend say first na bus stop no wa the person me ko ha o da bi bus stop man nka because I no dom no fa sin baby o de kosi no but wo de wo pe e be si wo say fa so a o ka say be fa so ene mama for wo kwan ho no because wo de open e si wo
La Paz u si ade se wo ko akwete man ho be bia se wo fa wo ko nante so atwom and so one nante abase
minister shortcut ene won kwa better maybe sir shortcut ene won kwa which one is better
oh dabi e kwan do mu ye ba
shortcut
me blame no e ko man penifo no because penifo no mo tua ye contractors no mo tuo mu yi a o ma ye kwan ni ya mai and I'm second blame e ko ma drivers. Most of the drivers in Ghana they are very careless.
Drivers
me busa say DVL phone. Drivers number almost 30 or more ansana.
You know say that
somewhere qualified ana.
No, but drive here
and you drive no kwa o say o make sure say are they well qualified for the job.
And yet, professional.
And yet, driver say, on him driving.
And Kakunaso, drivers near was as whom Kumasi Quine. Do you say Ghana Penny Fransha? And do December, no Nipa, if you don't blame the driver. Your friend is a Uniba, Airport Cape Nonsono, and what's so much for money and see one and near Cosson and yet. I say pray no more than I'm crying. And I only what I said. And I said, no piano, accident, and what about more being yet. The
statistics. And one story.
Me and Trina be everyone on who you know, Abamo Biana, Pine says, when you do Ebony William, but Ebony dear by dear about you back.
Okay.
It's woman drink kind of food
now. Make us a president number out. Make us a dream more like a dream. Accident. May cast more like accident. And a president, Ataske transport minister, interior minister, and a minister for roads and highways. Say, I'm finding solution. Moon is at the moment.
The accident number until Nanko buy and Nanko bed. Or buy a Nanka den. Say, yes, accident you and Ebon on this sojourning girl. Omo mudin when the see ebony no no kwan na chese owu ye anti ama abanyani abre and ama abanyani abre ase omo wu ye no moja na efi omo mu ba ebegu fom ne ye different sin ebony dia no ni mo ta ni kwa omo ni mo ya mo because I say omo chin ye na omo so chin ye na ye na na foto aba e bia me meto aba mpo sa ebony mpo e bia wan ni go di line so to aba ma aba e bia wan
yeah, documentary be our N1 6 years after commissioning. When you go for here 300
yes
300 lives. Before me make us blame me for crossing that road. Me make which road? See, what bridges? Oh, why am I here?
Almost say
na wo huri mo ble mu se abana na ka agba wa na je mu se abana se mo ble mu se abana ya bi sa wo se pa ko na wo ko bu ade na ko no o ko ejuma abana ba na ejuma ya na ejuma oh le shortcut bi ni won kwa bia shortcut bi na won kwa me ko ejuma me na me ko ejuma because ejuma ni wona me ko ejuma me pentem and na woni se wo ankasa woni se road na wo ye no fence foot bridge na luka so man ko achira o so man be ni ma na de na wo kwa foot bridge no wo ble mu se o mo ye
me je me kan se bibi wo wa abani wo wa mo ma ye nje ansa ye late bibi wo wa mo ma ye nya ansa ye late ye se ye mani pe wu ansa ya be ka ni kwanse de bi mani pe wu ansa nim sa de wo ye ya ebe se bibi ye nya je se asai bibi ansa
okay
who say abani wo
wa se ye ya ansa
wa fe di bele kwa ka abani ba friend wa fe di bele kwa ka the all for the wo nya DVL
a police for ka
police for ka hwe one obi tumi tina fi ese ne last sen kwa last man we are taking
baby who shot ka obey
me be dey
obey me nya hypocrite
police na wo say omo but be jig bibi kakra na ya na to asiko enche ne wo ko accident
driver ni bi wo ha sabi wo hwe na long strip sa na wo hwe onu akasa ne nse ya hye long strips ni mu na wo hwe nanim dua na any some man lances say wom say Ghana ya denje na so any some man lances because onu akasa na oba na obaje lances no kra wa twa bi
na me say ni pa na what fie na wasoma
wa ye fine
ti fie na wasoma
eti obetina ka ya nimu hwe dan ye fi so mu ba so mu kwan so na mgusi ye ba na driver no ye ka o si meti won meti ate meti bom no ojim na ye ka no si
taxi driver be life ah minim say ye man license ye ni I say na ya man wa nya license what I say almost share nipa wu bibia na ye because ye nipa ewudo
most of the drivers in
nipa ewudo
akra ye me cuz me meet with most of the drivers on akra ye omuni license ade because when me say police no wa chemia man bibi so that say so that say obipo instead of say obey use D and A and answer 207 no obipo to me use A and 207 but rules no
okay but minim chiche bi I'll say ebia per say avoid this road accident drivers I be omu etrika omu ye call no yen chichi omu na ebia
yes I no more jina wagina ha no more din komo no more cross traffic no more din komo te so mo kase wi an watu asa document aba abese ni na cross accident
okay mo hu ni say time bi baby bet makase okay I feel we end here no e be accident ba ko who say me
apatesi ye nya omo twa ba obi ye cross ba bi amana nsa no kra mo ye mo adonko sana nkasa afia
then na mo so mo ye to also prevent that forget the politicians any driving
me nika nti eden ya mefoka na driver ni bi obi wa kra obi tim car ni mu no wa kwatra wo chira ma no wasi fom no obi fo fryer den abetini obi wa kra tumi tu car no ko ba se ha ni day 7 no wasi no de ama nti wo kwatra car no obi de hu se we na de me kwa na do nti paibo na
nyame hu
ye se Ghana fu ye bebo ye de abo ye ho ba se nyame ntwitwa nje se ye kwafoka bi na nya nyame na nkasa hu ye mopo no on my si for answer na driver na nkasa nkowu
nyame hu ye mobom pa na ye bobo se nyame na se bibi wo ho a ye ni ntem na be ye ansan ye later mpanimfo ne sro mo munyam inkrasi wudu baby a ekwane da so obedi baby na portos basa ye sro mo munyam ma yen na nipa na eto aba mo baaye
me masam kra four pe one good leaders good DVLA leader good policemen so that's it because any good policemen accident NC.
Okay, the public have made their thoughts clear on road accidents. Obviously they don't like road accidents, and then they want the necessary measures put in place to ensure it's prevented in the near future. Let me know your thoughts on this. Just log on to our social media platforms. On Facebook is News on TV3, and on Twitter is a News TV3. Our WhatsApp line active 050-823-5228. Thanks for watching.
Daily Graphic starts the morning photograph of what the paper says 1 week observance turns into carnival. Ebony reigns as 1 week celebration turns into carnival. A photograph of the huge crowd and her photograph on the front page here. That's the story. Also on the front page of the Daily Graphic, overhaul tax exemption regime to save industries. The AGI is talking there. Daily Guide, judges fire Atuguba over bogus report. Bogus is in court and Parliament votes Amidu, and President warns rogue headmasters. The BNFT says central bank jettisons offloading of GIPS shares, and VRE to sell non-core businesses. And the Business Day has U.S. company buys Teshi water plant, $26 million tabled as the base price. Those are some of the newspapers with me here. My guest this morning, Richard Asante-Yeboah, is a member of the NPP's communication team. Good morning. Good morning. Hope you're doing great.
By the good grace of God, we are so doing.
Thanks so much for your time. We're still waiting for a rep from the NPP. But let's start with the NDC. Sorry, pardon me for that. Let's start with the Ghanaian Times this morning. 21 cops dismissed, 37 others reprimanded, 13 reduced in rank for various offences. The police service, we're told, is doing this to keep the pressure on its officers to conform to rules and regulations. So a total of 282 faced disciplinary action within the same period. That's for last year, showing the reduction of 60% in the cases. The offences were assault on own colleagues, robbery, deserting their duty, undue delay investigations, lack of civility to the public, and abuse of office, among others. And so the Director General assured the public that the police will not relent in its efforts to uphold professionalism in the service, saying we're determined to provide best policing with international best standards without discrimination. That's kind of good news for the police service efforts at keeping the officers in check. Richard, let's start from here. Is this perhaps what would keep these officers in check as to their behavior?
Thank you very much, and good morning to your amazing viewers. I think, this is a step in the right direction. I think this is what we ought to do. As state institutions, we ought to find a way of purging the system, trying to weed out the bad nuts. And this can be said about every state institution. You remember not long ago there was issues about the judges where efforts were made in weeding out the bad nuts. So at least we can strengthen and also try to help deepen the faith of the ordinary people in such institutions. And I think that the police is one of the institutions that really comes into play in terms of our daily activities and how to even fight crime and combat same. And I'm happy that my senior brother, Mr. David Asante-Yeboah, has taken the fight to its own institution and trying to make sure that at least it's trying to also weed out some of the bad nuts within the system. I'm excited particularly about issues that borders on delays or necessary delays in investigations. That has been some of the tactics that most institutions use in trying to kill or to even take away public interest in some of these issues that usually come to the fore. I'm happy in that regard, because when this happens like this, a strong signal has been sent to the rank and file across the country, all the police, investigative bodies, and any individual who is a man or a woman in uniform, that indeed, going forward, some of these things will not be entertained. I mean, it's also pleasing to know, and it's quite pleasing to the ears to realize that similar actions have been taken against individuals who are either going to take a bribe or are not really showing some level of seriousness in terms of doing their work. I'm excited that, all in all, the police is gradually positioning itself to indicate to the world that, because this is not the first time we are seeing this. We've seen a couple of such, even where police senior officers have been interdicted and their fate has either been yet to be determined or been determined, and some of them have been sacked and all that. I think this is the best way forward, just to make sure that everybody will be accountable, because the most important thing about our country is that we can only be a successful country, we can only live in peace when the laws of the land are applied. And I do believe that the laws of the land is being applied in this regard. So as government is making effort to make sure that individuals who have made away with money belonging to the citizens, belonging to the state, the money that could have helped in constructing roads, that could have been used in building schools, that could have been used in making sure that we have potable waters across the forgotten part of the country. If such monies, if government is making effort to retrieve same and also prosecute or punish such individuals, then I think that the police institution that will be mandated, that will play a critical role in this regard, in trying to sort of offer the necessary investigations, are equally trying to put in measures to at least curb itself, to remove the badness from it. And I think that is a great news for the country and a great news for the police administration.
If you remember recently, there was a case where a victim at, I think, the Adentan police station, where a prosecutor will deliberately switch off her phone so that the case will go into a weekend, and the suspect can be detained in police cells over the weekend, because the courts don't work on weekends. And so once you get in by Friday, if your case is not settled before the close of Friday, it means that you're going to stay in there Friday night, Saturday and Sunday until Monday. Now, if the police service is taking a look at persons who unduly delay cases, should it be a case of the service alone, or perhaps we should find a way to get the court system to operate on weekends, so that persons who get to the police stations by Fridays at least can get to the court on Saturday and Sunday to be given bail, instead of having to stay in till Monday?
I think, see, when you put it, I followed that particular story.
Right.
And the woman was even a pregnant woman. And the circumstances under which she was kept in there was something that was mind-boggling. And I'm sure what she was alleged to have done was something that was bailable offense.
Right. And
obviously, looking at the incident, it does appear she spent more than a mandatory 48 hours in the police custody. So, which means that even before you even bring in the issue of the court, it does appear that her fundamental human rights were trampled upon. And those are the most important things that we need to look at. The court has even gotten in the scenario of that nature. The police, and there were people who were ready to offer whatever it is that the police
to
were
get her
the surety and stand in surety, and allow the lady to secure her freedom. But it does appear that the policewoman at that instance was ready to either use the system to either embark on personal vendetta or to try to either has been compromised to punish the lady in a particular way. And I think those things ought to be looked at. And I'm happy that that issue came to the attention of the police administration, and they are looking seriously into that, and the various investigations are being held on that. Beyond that, this notion that when you are arrested on Friday, and or even or if you are in there and before Friday you are not allowed to go, you cannot be granted bail. I can't even understand that. 48 hours is 48 hours.
Right. Whether it's a weekend,
whether it's even a weekend, if it falls on Sunday, Saturday, whatever time. So this behavior where we try to use the police use the law and literally, I mean, in their quest to apply the law, rather try to abuse the fundamental rights of human beings, and also even infringe and literally spit on the Constitution or the law itself. I think it's some of the things that we need to look at. And I'm sure, I'm excited that at this juncture, we have got into a moment where every state institution is really looking at itself, checking itself, trying to focus on making sure that at least what we pay the various individuals or the institutions for, people are giving our money worth. And I'm happy. I'm happy that Mr. Santipieto and his
taking
teams
some
our charges are really up in fighting these things.
Right.
Because the next thing that I want us to look at is beyond even punishing the individuals who are, we need to look at their offices, and also we need to find a way of appreciating others who are putting in more. I've seen a couple of times where policemen and women are standing in and it's raining, serious rainstorms, and still they are in there finding ways of offering some level of assistance to the society. There are moments where people even go to the extent of compromising their lives. And I'm happy that we've been told that the police have even instituted a sort of a insurance scheme for the men and women in the uniform. I think these are some of the things that we can do to sort of encourage our people whilst we punish the bad ones.
To give of their best. All right, now let's shift to the Statesman this morning. Stop unapproved charges. President cautions senior high school heads. And the Ghanaian Times put it, errand head to face sanctions. The story is very clear. The president at the weekend was at one of the senior high schools, and he said that no headmaster or headmistress of any unapproved or illegal fees or charge fees already exempted under the free senior high school policy will go free. According to the president, he knows there are a handful of reactionary elements in the country who are determined to undermine the free SHS policy. He recounted how government, together with the Ghana Education Service and the council and the heads of Conference of Assisted Senior High Schools, had agreed to absorb all senior high fees under the free senior high school policy. No headmaster or headmistress is therefore to charge any unapproved or legal fees or charging fees already exempted under the policy. The president was speaking at the 60th anniversary of Pope John Senior High School and Minor Seminary in Koforidua in the Eastern region. Richard, the worry about this story is that when the program took off, some heads were either transferred, others demoted for charging unapproved fees. And that's about almost some 6 months back. Now, if today the president is still worried about these heads, does it mean that some communication gap is causing problems? Or these heads do not know exactly what to do and what not to do?
I think this had to do with mischief and trying to undermine the policy of government. Because largely we've seen a good number of reported cases where individuals have been picked up by the police, and also others are facing the law because they decided to not only charge approved fees, but some of them decided to loot the foodstuffs and other materials that have been given to the schools to help our case. I think we need to understand and appreciate one thing, that as the government and as President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has indicated over the years, his desire is to see every Ghanaian child have access to quality education. His desire to see every Ghanaian child have access to free education. His desire to see that the resources of the country is applied in that direction. Our oil resources will not be used for the likes of bus branding and other things that will not really gain anything from. He wants every household in this country to benefit from our oil resources. But we've got into a situation where individuals, either we can call them saboteurs or criminal elements within the system, have chosen to rather undermine this laudable initiative where millions or thousands of families are being saved as a result of these particular policies. Children who otherwise couldn't have gotten access to education. But this time around, we are seeing over 90,000 increment in terms of enrollment. That's a huge figure. We are seeing a lot more individuals who would have gone through a lot of difficulties in wanting to even pay for their worst fees, securing loans, selling their properties or selling their clothes and all that to make sure their children go to school. At this kind of at the moment, they are having these things given to them by the government and through the desire of the president to make sure that Ghanaians get and benefit from the mineral resources and whatever resources God has bequeathed to us. I'll give you a good number of examples in this particular direction where individuals, headmasters, matrons were caught or arrested by the police for either packing foodstuffs or other things that have been supplied by government. Because when they do that, then children are not getting the needed food or whatever it is. The media pick stories, and so government is not providing them with the needed thing. But buffer stock and other arrangements that the Ministry of Education, through the able leadership of Mr. Matthew Poku Prempe, have put in place, some of these people are doing everything within their power to rather throw the policy off gear. I remember in last year, we have Madam Comfortodro Bruce, a senior matron, and Reverend Abraham Donko, headmaster responsible of Ghana Senior High School, Ghana's in Koforidia, being arrested by the police for loading foodstuffs meant for the student for sale to private individuals. In the same period, we have matrons at Bupe Tonon Senior High School, who was also reported and arrested for picking foodstuffs and also selling to the general public. We have matron and staff of the Nyinasi Man Senior High School in Bekwai municipal area also been arrested by the BNI, Madam Teresa Akuto Esel, who was also assistant mission, also cooperate in this whole affair. There are a good number of examples across the country, and some of these individuals were arrested by the police, and their investigations are going on. Some of those are also facing the courts to give reasons why they would want to adopt this sort of attitude in sabotaging this process. So we know that there are a few issues here and there in terms of the free education, which government is addressing. But if government is spending money trying to address the difficulties, and we have Ghanaians or citizens who are supposed to even support the policy, but rather are going around undermining this laudable policy. And these are things that we need to all look at. And I think it's a laudable call by the president that anybody who tries that will be arrested by the police and will be allowed to face the full struggles of the law.
The other issue the president raised is that procurement processes are ongoing to get contracts for some 69,000 monodecks, 13,000 bunk beds, furniture for dining hall, staff rooms of teachers, computer labs, and provision of marker boards for classrooms. But some have suggested that some schools are really in distress, so the president will need to quickly put timelines to these instead of just always talking about providing these infrastructure.
I think in terms of this particular comment by the president, it is already ongoing.
Right.
I know a good number of schools who are receiving desk, bambers, and other facilities that would enable them to kickstart the next academic year in full force, and also to open the space for a good number of individuals who were sort of caught in the moment of difficulty, and as a result could not get access to either a boarding facility or even not able to get dining facility and all those things. Government really admits and knows that there will be challenges, and indeed there are challenges, and government is taking every single step to make sure that these challenges are addressed, because that's the most important thing. Because as a country, I'm not sure we've got into a moment where there wouldn't be difficulties in any part of our societal life. There will be difficulties here and there, but the desire of the government to attend to these difficulties, to address them, to provide permanent solution to them is what is really exciting. I think the government is making every effort to make sure that the various needed facilities at various schools are provided to assist these schools and also our children and our wards.
Right, grateful. Richard Asante-Yeboah is a member of the NPP's communications. My next guest, Felix Kwachu-Fosu, is a member of the NDC, former deputy minister. Good morning. I hope you're doing great.
Oh, good morning, guys.
Right. Thanks for your time. The statesman has a story. Stop unapproved charges. The president warning heads of senior high schools that they will be sanctioned if they don't stop charging unapproved fees. The question is that right from the beginning, the onset of the program, some heads were either dismissed, some were demoted, some were transferred for charging unapproved fees. Now, if today the president is not talking about it. The question is it a case of communication not getting to these heads, or they don't know the direction to go? What really could be resulting in these heads continuing to charge unapproved fees?
Well, right. The phenomenon of unapproved fees is a long-standing one. And I think that all that is required are administrative measures. The authorities at the Ghana Education Service, the Ministry of Education, I believe, have adequate information on this practice, and therefore, over the years, should have devised a mechanism for checking it. So, in the hierarchy of problems confronting senior high school education, I believe that it's one of the most minor, and perhaps the president and policymakers ought to concern themselves with much bigger difficulties that the rushed implementation of this program has occasioned. When the president gets opportunities like the one that he had over the weekend, I expect that far-reaching policy measures will be announced to address the big issues affecting education. Unfortunately, you don't hear that a lot. What you hear are platitudinal claims and repetition of long-standing rhetoric on the same subject. I would have loved to hear from the president a comprehensive plan to alleviate the extreme hardship that our younger brothers and sisters have been thrust into because of ill-preparedness and a desire to rush through a program that government clearly was not ready for. I would have loved to hear the president articulate clearly a definite and permanent source of funding for this program, so that we don't have a situation where in September, when another batch of senior high school students are admitted, they don't go and compound already existing problems. I don't think that I heard that. Yes, I heard you speak about some monodes and other facilities that will be given to schools, but these are very routine things. Even long before free SHS was introduced, I am aware of information that shows that tens of thousands of desks and other teaching materials were sent to schools. Indeed, in the last Meet the Press, that's the then Minister of Education, Professor Nana Jenopukwajima address, which I moderated, she disclosed that in the 3 years that she was minister, close to 80,000 desks were distributed. Tens of thousands of mattresses, bunk beds, and what have you were given to schools. So these are things that are done every year. Indeed, if you check various budgets over the years, I mean, money is set aside to do these things. I don't believe that these are the things that would materially alleviate the suffering that the kids are going through. That I don't seem to get from the president. Again, as I walked in, I heard Richard lament the abuse of the procurement processes by some matrons and other officials at various senior high schools. You see, that arises out of the manner in which the program has been implemented. As I speak to you,
is that why they are stealing the?
I'm not saying so, but what they have done is that it has become more difficult to check these things. And these are things that have existed over the years. I'm sure if you go through the newspapers, you will find that several people have been arrested for engaging in similar practice. It is not unique to this program that has been launched. But the difficulty that has arisen is that procurement has been centralized, such that there are clear violations and breaches in the procurement law. We know schools also fall under the Procurement Act, and they are supposed to have a system that complies with the Procurement Act. First of all, they need to have a tender entity committee at the school level. This tender entity committee is supposed to receive a procurement plan for the year, approve it, and have it implemented. This time, schools have been told to sit aloof and expect supplies from, say, the National Buffer Stock Company in Accra and elsewhere. School uniforms for these children, desks, and other inputs that they require, all have to be procured from a centralized authority in Accra. That kind of thing lends itself to abuse and total opacity. That makes it impossible for the schools to even appreciate what it is that they are getting, who supplied it, and what have you. Because the schools, at the end of the year, have to write reports on their expenditure patterns and how resources that came to them are addressed. So in implementing this program, this government is engaging in re-centralization and compounding existing problems. Because if you go through the procurement processes, you'll find that there's a manifest lack of transparency. A headmaster sits in a school in a remote part of this country and receives food supplies at a time when local suppliers can do that work effectively. All that the headmaster requires is for resources to be released to him.
I see. Richard's concern was about matrons who were picking food and selling them to private individuals. And
you see, right? I'm saying that. Listen,
are you suggesting that?
No, I'm telling you,
because of the centralization that's
no, I haven't said so.
The
I began by stating that I think that when the president gets these opportunities, he ought to go for the big problems. Routine difficulties that we've dealt with are not things that, in my view, should occupy the sort of space that the president gives. Matrons pilfering food items and what have you are a long-standing difficulty. It's a law and order issue. When you catch them, you deal with them. For me, it is not the biggest problem confronting senior education in Ghana. I didn't hear the president touch on what I consider to be the big problem. That's
the centralization.
I'm saying that one of them is the centralization.
Okay.
Rachel, let me make a point.
Okay.
One of them is the centralization of these procurements. I don't see any legal or policy basis for it, beyond perhaps carving out huge contracts to give to some favorite contractors and what have you. Otherwise, I think that it should be decentralized. It makes for greater efficiency and more effective management at the school level. That, for me, is what we need to concern ourselves with. The other point has to do with the release of resources. As I speak to you, it is not clear whether even all monies for the first term have gone to the schools. It is not clear. Nobody seems to be commenting on it. No account seems to be rendered on that particular part. Again, it is not clear whether learning from the experiences of the first term, we are going to avoid that in the second term and other terms that will follow. There appears not to be any communication on the subject. And yet when the president gets the opportunity, he focuses on these minors, which in my view ought not to be occupying the space that they are occupying. Once they committed themselves to the policy, they ought to show greater, effort in terms of addressing the fundamental difficulty. And I have always insisted that what every government ought to do as a major priority is to address the fundamental issues first and make sure that a minimum standard of education is given to every Ghanaian child. The way you do that is to ensure that long-standing problems are addressed before you compound it with programs that have huge capital outlay, capital that you clearly do not have and have to scramble around for. And in the meantime, condemn children in senior high schools to extreme difficulties. In my view, the government has not done enough to convince me that they really were prepared for this program and that very fruitful dividends are to be expected from this program. Certainly not in the manner that they are implementing it. We have not seen an improvement in the living conditions. The children are still sleeping rough, some in the open, some under trees, some are still sitting on cement blocks, some don't have basic teaching equipment with which effective teaching and learning can take place in these schools. I would like to see a comprehensive program and roadmap to which the president speaks when he gets to comment on these matters. That assures all of us that we are simply not throwing money down the drain and that our children are not going through all these difficulties only to record results that would not aid our developmental process as a country.
I'm grateful. Richard, is it also worrying to you that perhaps, like he's suggesting, that centralization, some of the problems we see on the campus is lack of furniture, projects that have delayed, the lack of textbooks might be as a result of pushing everything from the center to the localities?
Right, not necessarily, but I think before I tackle the aspect of centralization, I think I need to attend to some of the few issues that he raised. I mean, he talked about minor difficulties, but when in wrapping up his comment, he came to the conclusion that there are no desks, there are no teaching materials and all those things. But these are the issues that the president is speaking to and asking, and is letting people know that government is looking at that and supplying the needs of the schools. So how do you turn them to be routine when you, at another breath, you claim that those are the central things that government needs to talk about? He spoke about funding. I think MPP in our manifesto we gave clear indication how we're going to fund education. And even it is stipulated how the oil resources ought to be applied. And same, it said that in terms of the usage of the resources, we ought to focus on agriculture, health, and education. Government is looking at using our oil resources to forward to take care of education and other difficulties that may come as a result of the implementation of the free SHS. I know there will be other source of funding that will come in, but at the end of the day, the major chunk of the money will be coming from oil resources, which the NDC have been told repeatedly. It does appear that they are not ready to take that one on board their stripes. The next aspect had to do with convincing him about government's preparedness to resolve the various difficulties. Right, I think that we've gotten to a stage that some of us have come to the realization that I'm sure even angels cannot convince NDC people as to what government wants to do and the direction the government is taking in terms of this free SHS policy. Because regardless of the information that is provided to them, they still do not want to accept it. Because at the end of the day, as a country, there hasn't been any policy or any program that we've started or we've gotten ahead into that did not see difficulties. It's like a family setting. If you want to build a house, you will not wait till you have all the monies in the world before you initiate it. You start and continuously iron out some of the various difficulties that may arise in the course of the construction. And that is how we see in our nation building. Free education, if we are supposed to follow the NDC plan, then we are supposed to wait for 20 years. However, we've waited for several years when we promulgated the 1992 Constitution. That was literally looking at education and the way forward. So we have to start it. And the president, with that boldness, has decided to initiate it. I remember when the NDC were trying to introduce the rebate or the system of education, where they claimed that government was going to take a mega 120 or 112 Ghana cedis out of the over 500 Ghana cedis. That was the approved fees given to the SHS during the era of President Mahama. They still thought that government was doing something. They thought the government ought to be applauded. They initiated how many schools? How many were they able to build? They initiated over 200. Even some of them, monies were paid, but not even a single block was laid. They were very difficult, but at least at the end of the day, they were able to build a few. So as a country, we've come to the realization that there's the need for government to spend the resources, because obviously if it hasn't been through free education, I'm sure the chunk of our brothers from the NDC who literally enjoyed that during the era of President Nkrumah and other successive governments, because there has been a policy up north, I'm sure most of them wouldn't have gotten to where they are now. But for the fact that government and the government of Ghana then decided to devote money for education. That is why the lives of the former President Mahama, who equally enjoyed free education, Honorable Haruna Idriso, Honorable Yunus Hussein, and some of the great friends that I have from the NDC, who equally benefited from free education up north. I'm not sure during those eras, every basic needs of the schools in the north were provided. I'm not sure all the schools in the north were up to scratch and they were up to the standard that we were expecting. But they felt that there was a need to bridge the gap between the north and the south. And these individuals got access to education where government paid for. So if today there's a government and a president who cares about the needs of the people, says that, you know what, it is high time we applied our resources judiciously. And I'm taking the lead. I'm making sure that we start with the free education, knowing that there will be difficulties. But as we progress, all those difficulties will be ironed out. We'll find solutions for them along the line. And that has been how every society, every country has been developed. You don't wait till you have all the resources at your disposal before initiating it. The last thing that my brother spoke about had to do with the fact that there are routine things in terms of stealing and all. It ought not to be routine. There are normal difficulty. It ought not to be normal. That government provides food.
Is it not trying to suggest that they are like matrons stealing foods and stuff like that are things that were there even before the implementation?
It's like saying that
that's what he's saying.
Stealing will go on anyway. No. So it should be normal. Nobody should caution.
Richard,
his suggestion, a word of caution.
His suggestion is that there are issues with the senior high school thing. So, and he said there are bigger issues.
I admitted
the issue of stealing and stuff like that are daily occurrences. That must be dealt with when they come.
Those ones are
so government should...
those ones are more dangerous.
Okay.
But the point is that It's like providing a solution for one, because there are several difficulties. You provide solution for one, and somebody goes to take the whole food and goes to sell and make the money and put the money in his own pocket. So have you provided a solution? The problem will persist. So it is more dangerous because government will take the meager resources, provide some basic needs of the schools, and somebody sit down there and take those meager resources. About this centralization thing that he spoke about, I think we need to understand and appreciate what government is trying to do. You know, the government desire to increase and also reduce the cost of food in our country, and also try to make sure that we become self-sufficient in terms of food. Government brought in planning for food and jobs. Government then put in mechanism to try and buy the food from the local farmers, so that we can stock them through the buffer stock system. That's why silos, some of them were renovated, some of them are also being constructed, and others. Government was literally buying the foodstuffs through that initiative. So if those foodstuffs are bought, the best thing to do is that to find a way of getting them to the various schools. So the schools will not cry. And for the first time in many years, we are not seeing schools cry because they are not getting their food.
So you're suggesting that the schools,
the
schools cannot buy the food from their localities?
You see, what people ought to understand is that what people ought to understand is that the food stuff that are being purchased by buffer stock is bought from the locality, from farmers within that enclave. That's what people need to understand. So the food are not being transported from Accra.
So you can't
for instance, we are talking about my hometown, Brekum. The foodstuffs are not being transported from Accra to Brekum. The local farmers in Brekum, they sell their food to buffer stock in Brekum. Then through the system, buffer stock then supplies Ministry of Education to be given to the various schools. The Ministry of Education pays buffer stock. The money then goes back to the farmers. So in terms of the supply arrangement and whatever processes the government is looking at, it is the best. And this has helped reduce the number of fraud cases that we see in terms of the supply system and even inflation of contracts and all that.
Okay, Richard, a quick one.
See, first of all, I think that is high time the members of the NPP communication team and their officials in government drop this very condescending analysis about Northern scholarships. And then they mention the names of NDC people. As if there are no... Is it true? No, when you were speaking, I kept quiet, please. As if there are no MP people who benefited from that. What about those who benefited from Cocoa Scholarship, who were in the South? It is most insulting, you know, to create the impression that without that, somebody would have gone to school. It was a government intervention, but I see it was targeted. Unlike the very haphazard manner in which they've implemented this, that one was targeted to resolve a specific problem. So it is not the mention of names of leading figures of the NDC in a very condescending manner that explains away the shambolic implementation of this free SHS program. When you are a government, you prioritize the most fundamental needs first. Your resource envelope is limited. So you apply resources in a way that yields the biggest dividends first. We had an educational system that had challenges right from basic level to tertiary level. So what you do as a government is to remove those problems and get to a stage where you guarantee each Ghanaian child a minimum standard of education. As and when more resources come into your kitty, then you target those who have genuine difficulty accessing education because of resource constraints. But here you have a government that clearly does not have the money and decides to pump the little it has into the system in a manner that does not address the fundamental issues. When you speak, they speak about challenges. Look, we are not talking about difficulties with placement. For instance, you want your child to go to Infantima, then he ends up at Kulago Senior High School, which is a program that arises out of maybe a computer malfunction or a software malfunction. We are talking of instances where children are so overcrowded in dormitories that they contract dangerous disease and die. We are talking of instances where the most basic amenities are not available. We are talking of instances where dormitories don't exist, so children sleep in the open. Those are self-inflicted difficulties that could have been avoided if the government was thinking strategically and not simply looking at harvesting votes. They simply had no plan for this program. All they were thinking about were votes. There were about 800,000 children who can be in SHS at a time. So 800,000 homes will secure as votes. That is actually what went into it. Because as I speak to you, you can't even produce a strategic plan. Okay, see, when you were speaking, I kept quiet. We need to maintain that.
All right, Richard, allow him.
You understand the point I'm making? Look, when they say that they have a systematic way of addressing the challenges, just look at their proposals. I invite you to read the budget of 2018 presented by the Finance Minister in November last year. Check the appendices where they allocate resources for senior high school education. You notice that they allocated 1.1 billion Ghana cedis to free SHS. If we even assume that all that money will come, because we know that in this our country, the most you will get will be 60 to 70% of your releases. Even if we were to assume that all 1.1 billion Ghana cedis will come, that would be inadequate to pay for just the fees of the 4 cohorts who have to be taken care of this year. That means the remaining 2 terms of those who went to school in September. Their first term in second year, and the first term of those who will come in this year. You need an average of 400 million Ghana cedis a term to take care of that. That is 1.6 billion, right? How much did they budget for in the budget?
You said 1.1.
1.1 billion. It's in the budget. 1.1 billion. So it means that even in terms of paying for fees, the very things that Richard is speaking about, they are short by $500 million. In addition to this are the issues of infrastructure, which have not been addressed. Check the budget again. You find that for the entire education sector, only about 200 million Ghana cedis was allocated for capital investment. Capital investment is basically the money that you use to do these infrastructure projects. And that is for the entire educational system, not just for SHS. From basic to tertiary. It means that all those within that bracket will have to scramble for a share of that 200 million Ghana cedis. That is even if all of it were to be released. So you find that even at a time when they are claiming that they are committed to addressing the challenges, they simply have not made the money available to do so. So when I speak to you about the persistence of these challenges, I'm doing so on the basis that their own information suggests that they have not found the money to do it. When you press him further about source of fund, he tells you oil money. What does it mean? Look, the oil money is shared according to law. There's what we call annual budget funding amount, out of which 70% has to be dedicated to our 4 sectors. So not even all the oil money goes to education. There's agriculture, there's health, and other sectors that are determined periodically. So it is only a fraction of that oil money that will go to add on to what we regularly allocate for the education sector. So when he sits here and creates the impression that when we go and sell our oil, all of it will be put into education, that is false. So when you tell me, I beg you, allow him to land. I kept quiet. You see, so that is why I say that when the president gets the opportunity, he must bring clarity to resolving the bigger issues. When I say that issues of theft and pilfering are routine, what I mean is that they are long-standing difficulties. They don't require presidential intervention to address. It's a law and order issue. For instance, if somebody steals at Accra Academy and he is found out, you simply take action against him.
Right.
If it means dismissal or suspension or any other sanction that is prescribed by law, you meter it out and move on. But when the opportunity avails itself and those who are championing this policy are not able to provide convincing answers to the begging questions, I think that it creates a difficulty for us as a country. What they will do is that they will compound the problems that exist already. And in the end, instead of giving our children a minimum standard of education, they are going to ensure a deterioration in the standard, and it will come back to haunt all of us. So let nobody get us wrong when we argue that there is a need for this government to have done adequate preparation and implement this program in a manner that alleviates the problem but does not add to it. When we say that, doesn't mean that we are against free education. And the answer to that certainly is not to mention the names of NDC people who went to school.
Those ones will be mentioned every now and then to remind you of the fact
but it is condescending.
It's a fact. Richard, is it also to suggest that there's you don't know any Southerner who might have attended school in the area where there was
nobody is
against it. They are fighting it. No, all these indications, all this analysis that
you are able to answer.
Now, what he's trying to do is to try to throw that into the public eyes. The government is not doing enough to resolve the difficulty.
But you think government is doing enough?
Government is doing enough.
Okay.
And government is taking every single step to make sure that this policy become a success.
Let me move to the daily guide.
They better sit down. No matter what happens, you mention the names every now and then.
Okay, judges fire at Tuguba. It says that controversial, that's according to Daily Guide, controversial research finding released by former Executive Secretary of ex-President Mahama has riled top judges in the country. Now we're told that Professor Raymond Atuguba of the Faculty of Law, University of Ghana, released the findings last week, which indicated Ghana's Supreme Court judges decide political cases taking into consideration the governments that approve them. The judges led by Chief Justice Sophia Akufu are, however, not taking kindly to the outcome of the research by Professor Atuguba, who is the nephew of the Supreme Court Judge William Atuguba, and have expressed their disapproval in the strongest terms. Now, this is the findings. He traced the voting patterns of judges from 1993 to 2018 and said he analyzed 100 political cases settled by the highest court, saying it revealed that on matters where the law is not clear, the judges were divided along the ideologies of the political parties that appointed them. And this is what the judges are not happy, and led by the Chief Justice. She said that Professor Atuguba's work is alien to Ghana and appears to fault the premise for the whole research. She said it is an American type of research that you have done, and that's fine, but please be careful what you're importing into our environment. She cautioned, adding that the Americans, are used to this, but we are not. I don't think there was a single judge who agreed with what you were saying. Justice Doche feels the findings are insulting, and the story goes on and on and on. But Professor Atuguba was adamant, saying he was not the least surprised that there was negative reaction to his findings. Words are just nothing to me, he said, adding, the first time I did a critical analysis of the police, the next morning, 8 fully armed officers were dispatched by the IGP to arrest me from my office. He claimed what we should do with these analyses, or he's asking, what should we do with these analyses? Should we stop doing them? Should we have another way of finaling this to the public? What should we do? He asked rhetorically. And that's some public opinion has been expressed here. Justice M. Short thinks that Professor Atuguba should publish the research findings, saying it would elicit constructive critique from academia. Others have suggested that there's nothing wrong with it. Professor Stephen Kweku Ansansari, who is based in the United States, has been leading a crusade against certain obnoxious public laws, describing the judge's negative reaction towards research findings as an attack on academic freedom. That's the story so far put up by the Daily Guide. Felix, let me start with you. Well, is the reaction of the judges, the Chief Justice and Justice Jones, Justice Doche said this is insulting. The Chief Justice cautioned Professor Atuguba. What do you make of their reaction to the findings?
Well, right. It was Justice Benjamin Cardoso, formerly of the U.S. Supreme Court, who once famously said that sunlight is the best disinfectant. What that means is that whenever people have power and they are exercising it, and we as a citizenry, who are ultimately the people they derive power from, do not take an interest in scrutinizing the activity, they tend to conduct themselves in ways that ultimately become detrimental to us. And that is why all public office holders, irrespective of the arm of government within which they operate, must come under scrutiny from the citizenry, because ultimately they derive their power from us. So over the years, you see that the executive and the legislature have come under constant scrutiny from the public. And so you observe an obvious improvement and change in the way that they carry out their responsibilities to other people. Indeed, what public officials fear the most is public scrutiny. The reason why when people find themselves in public office, even if they engage in wrongdoing, they do it clandestinely, is that they fear public scrutiny and reaction. But whenever you have any institution that literally is beyond public scrutiny, it begins to create a problem. What I deduce from the research finding that Professor Atuguba put out, and the reaction of the judiciary through some of the eminent justices of the Supreme Court, is that we have not scrutinized our judiciary enough as a people. It appears to me that the concept of sacred cows has been made paramount when it comes to the judiciary. There is some reticence and fear, if you like, to call out judges, to criticize the conduct of judges, even if it is harsh. Meanwhile, the executive and the legislature are pilloried on a daily basis, and no harm is done to our governance processes because of that level of scrutiny. Look, we can pretend for all we want, right? But we do know that in this country, people harbor serious disenchantment and misgivings about the way our judiciary operates. There are people who believe that when a case is sent to court, depending on who is sending it, a certain outcome is already procured. It is a genuine belief,
the perception
and sentiment.
Okay.
We cannot wish that away. Sometimes when you hear the name of a judge, you can be certain about how a particular ruling will go. It is in the interest of the Supreme Court and the entire judicial system that that perception is done away with. And that can only come about if things are done a certain way. Why? I've always cited the Muntie 3 versus the Delta Forces example. Why? People sit on radio, okay, and speak recklessly and irresponsibly about Supreme Court justices. The severest sanctions are imposed on them. They are imprisoned for 4 months. They are fined heavily. Indeed, the owners of the radio station, some of whom were outside of this country when those utterances were made, were summoned before court, summarily convicted. Some of them got 10 minutes to defend themselves. They were convicted and fined heavily. That is in one case. In another case, the most brazen act of lawlessness is exhibited by thugs associated with the MPP. They storm a court, threaten the judge, free suspects standing trial, and vandalize the police. The membership of that group is known. They have a known leadership. This group operates under the auspices of a known political party that has known and identifiable leaders. Absolutely nothing is done to them. So the judiciary in Ghana found it more worrying that people sat on radio and spoke recklessly.
But what do you
than,
Philip,
no, the point I'm
when
making,
you say absolutely nothing is done to them, they were punished.
Nothing has happened to the Delta 8.
Okay, then okay.
Yes,
then
those who were given a slap on the arrest
right.
were being tried for an entirely different thing, involving the assault on the security coordinator. But those who went to court, nothing has been done about it. And I'm saying that they have an identifiable leadership. They operate under the auspices of a political party with no leaders. Yet, the same principle has not been applied. The leaders of the Delta Force, despite the fact that they are known, have not been held liable for the conduct of their members. The leaders of the MPP, who have publicly taken ownership of this group, have not been hauled before court and charged with contempt, like was done for the Muntie 3. So when an NDC supporter sits back, okay, and reads political meanings into this kind of conduct, he is justified. He will say that, okay, perhaps some judges support the MPP, so they are unwilling to take interest in this matter. Because nobody can convince me that the Muntie 3 incident threatened our peace more than the Delta Force incident in Kumasi in the court. So when such perceptions exist against the background of incidents like this, and a professor conducts research, looks at what he calls political cases, and notices that there is an inordinate pattern of voting, such that depending on which party or under which party's auspices a particular judge is appointed, there's a correlation with the way that he or she votes on a particular case. I'm not sure that the response to it ought to be angry reactions and dismissals and condemnation.
Let me ask you this, I'll go to Richard. When he says that the time to act is now, do you see Professor Tukuba trying to pitch the public against the judiciary?
Is it right? As we sit here.
Is that not what he's
No, as we sit here, I have criticized the executive. Okay? Richard, when he was on the other side of the political divide, no, I mean when he was in his party was in opposition, criticized the then government. I'm not sure that when he did that, he was pitching the public against the government. Except that citizens must have a right, you know, to criticize their leaders. Their criticism may be harsh or it may be mild, but they reserve that right. It is the duty of public office holders to conduct themselves in ways that are in tandem with the aspirations of their people. If you are a judge, your ruling should be solely based on the dictates of the law and your interpretation of it. Political calculation should never form a part. And this must be manifest in the way that justice is delivered. So I believe that Professor Atugube's research findings offer an opportunity for us to have a comprehensive discussion about that arm of government that appears to be impervious to public scrutiny. Because I don't accept the concept of sacred cows. And whilst I accept wholeheartedly that judges ought to be shown utmost respect because of the key role they play, we should never place judges above scrutiny. What we will do is to mortgage our own freedoms to them. So it is important that we encourage Professor Atuguba to publish these findings, analyze it objectively, and see if there are ways in which we can change the status quo so that public confidence will build up in the judiciary, such that when they make a ruling, despite our disagreements, we will respect it and know that the judge has pronounced the matter purely on the basis of the facts and the law, and not on political consideration. I'm grateful. Yes,
Richard.
I think very much, Bright. I listened to Prof. Atuguba with some level of disappointment in the kind of attitude that he had adopted in this particular regard. In academia, when you make such pronouncements, you ought to back them with your findings. Your finding ought to be available to your peers for peer review. You cannot just go out there and make pronouncements that people cannot have hardcore evidence come emanating from your so-called research, and to see whether indeed it is consistent in terms of methodology, in terms of even the overall analysis and whatever that you are, the conclusion you are coming to. You just go out there, make such speculations and pronouncements with which is not being backed by any hard evidence to prove that these are my research findings. And it's okay. That issue.
He said he has evidence, but you are asking that.
It's not available to anybody who's listening to you.
Okay, all right.
It would have been very important if those informations were available, or those evidence or those research findings were available to the peers in the academia, the judges. So everybody will look at it and see, indeed, what this man is preaching, what he's talking about is true. Now, there's no way to validate that. You can't say anything but to listen to what he's saying. That, yeah, I've done some research, and these are the indications that political cases people are voting based on who the political party that appointed them. Really? What are we driving at? In our history, the biggest political case we've gotten in our history, you can look at the election petition. So what are his conclusions? Mr. Atuguba, or Dr. Atuguba, or Professor Atuguba is a member of the NDC. He rose to become he's a member of the NDC. He served under the Mahama administration as well. Please, he's a member of the NDC. You can sit here and deny him. I'm saying that he will sit here. I allowed him your turn. I allowed him his time. He said, Richard, listen to me. I'm talking about what I know.
Richard, please listen to me. Dr. Edward Mahama is serving under Mahama. He's not a member of the NDC. So don't conclude. Except you can show his card that is a member of the NDC.
But the man spoke about judge voting in a particular party without proving, showing any evidence to anybody.
Richard,
and I'm telling you that, allow me my
Richard, please. Listen, I'll not allow you to. I ask you a question. Dr. Edward Mahama is serving under Nanado. Is he a member of the NPP? Is he a member of the NPP?
I say Edward Mahama, we all know is a member of the NDC. But I know that Mr. Atuguba is a member of the NDC, and among his credentials, he served as executive secretary to President Mahama.
Is Dr. Mahama a member of the NPP?
If you allow me, Bright.
No, I'm asking the questions because you can't show us.
Because you don't know.
Richard, because you can't show us his card.
You want me to show his card?
You don't need to.
Anybody who makes in this country, do you have to come here with membership card of political parties?
No, but since you cannot show,
you can't do that.
It is better you don't say because you
let me proceed. Let me proceed.
Yes,
let me proceed.
Just hold that on.
Beyond that, he served as executive secretary under President Mahama's regime. His uncle, CJ, Chief Justice, what do you call it, Justice of the Supreme Court, Mr. Atuguba was also on the election petition. So are you saying that he voted based on the person who appointed.
He didn't mention his name,
No,
but that's exactly what Professor Atuguba is saying.
All of us.
He said that out of
yes,
I'm saying that because we don't have a lot of time. He's simply saying
me to
that.
Make my comment,
yes, he's simply saying that.
Then because the suggestion is not really helping me.
Okay,
if you allow me to flow, you can come in later on with your question, which will be very nice for me. I'm saying that, is he saying based on this content, his uncle also sat on that. His uncle has sat on a couple of political cases.
That's exactly what he's saying, except that he did not mention his uncle's name.
No, I'm just giving, but it's a fact. The man is his uncle. The man sat on the election petition. He led the bench. Is it not true? These are bare facts, and we all know that. I'm even giving you things that can be verified by everybody. By his own, nobody can even say anything about it because he hasn't given a proof. You can even go to the other issues. I hope you get see. Right, one thing, I'm not sure people are seeing the seriousness.
So you don't believe in the perception that judges
not only, I don't even believe, but I believe in that the timing of this comment.
Do you believe in that perception or you don't?
I don't believe in the first place. Second place is that
the
timing is dangerous. This is a moment where there's a new administration, where individuals from the previous administration, where he served in, including himself, could be called by the various security investigative bodies to account for one thing or the other, where they will be allowed to ask to account for their deeds. And you are saying that you could not do all those research during the era of President Muhammad Idris' administration. Now that people are being called to account for their deeds, now you are creating an impression in the minds of the ordinary people that judges are not going to be fair. Judges are going to rule on matters because of what? Then what is the need of he being even a lawyer in the first place? The point is that there wouldn't be fairness at the bench. If issues can be based on who appointed who, that's how they're going to vote. What he's done is dangerous, and we ought to condemn him. We need to understand that what he's doing is not helping anybody. It's not helping judges. It's not helping the general public. Because see, over the period as a country, we had some difficulties in making people believe in the legal system. People are involving themselves in all manner of things, cursing and do all manner of things, fighting and taking the law into their own hands. Right. Because they literally do not believe in the court system.
All right, Richard, so I'm grateful.
You have a lawyer of self-repute, a lecturer, a professor, going about making such comments without verifiable evidence, without any proof, by just saying that I did a research. If you
put the findings out and you go through and you're satisfied with the methodology,
that finding should even be the first thing to come before he goes out there to make such pronouncement.
Okay,
because
I'm
the point
grateful.
is that we are allowed to criticize, but the criticism.
Thanks so much, Richard, for your time with me. I've gone past 8 o'clock. I'm grateful. I'm grateful.
When Dr. presented the findings, I think he gave a snapshot of his methodology and everything that went into
But
it.
the work itself was not
available. Yes, but he has said, look, the work was not available. That he will publish it. In any event, it's not the first time that somebody has put out some research. Why? About a month ago, didn't the political science department of the University of Ghana put out some...
But they put their work out there.
No,
they put their work out there.
All right, gentlemen, I'm grateful for your Monday morning with us. Richard Asante Yeboah is a member of the NPP's communication team. Felix Watiovusu is a former deputy minister, a member of the NDC. Grateful for your time with us. Stay here. There's more coming up.
The Kassena-Nankana West District was carved out of the Kassena-Nankana Municipal in 2008. The district occupies a land area of 1,459 square kilometers of the total land space of Ghana, with a population of 82,655 in 112 communities. It shares boundaries to the north with Burkina Faso, northeast with Bongo District, east with the regional capital Bolgatanga, and the south with Busa. The district has 6 health centers, no district hospital, and 35 demarcated chiefs compounds with 31 functioning. These health facilities are in all 3 zones, namely Eastern, Central, and Western. 12 out of the 31 functional chiefs compounds are mobile chiefs compounds.
Out of the 31 functional chiefs zones, only 19 of them have structures. That is, they have a structure that can accommodate the staff to stay within their catchment area and work. And so it means 12 of these functional chip zones do not have structure. And so it means, therefore, the health staff stay at the health center level and commit daily to their catchment area to render door-to-door services to the community members.
The Paga Health Center, the only health facility in the district which is supposed to be operating as a district hospital, still operates as a health center. Well, you can call it the Kassina Nankana West District Hospital or the Kassina Nankana West Health Center. Either way, you are right, because this facility has been upgraded into a district health status since 2015, but 2 years on it still operates as a health center. Established in 1982, the 20-bed capacity health center on the average records about 500 outpatient attendance in a month.
Welcome back. So that's Zubaida Ismail's report. I've been joined in studio by Brighton Anamfo, who's been out there touring the regions on behalf of TV3 for missions, and also the Honorable Rudolph Amenga Etigo. He is the Member of Parliament for the Kassina Nankana. Chief, welcome and thank you very much. And also the Honorable Edward Bauer, the MP for Bongo. Gentlemen, welcome. Good morning. I'll start with you because this is within your domain. In 2015, that particular hospital was given a district status. But as we speak, it's still operating as a regular health facility, you know, without that clout. Why is that so? Do you know?
Well, I think basically it's because the Ghana Health Service has not been able to mobilize the necessary funds to upgrade it. The community has been asking for upgrading for a very long time now. The youth have even come together to organize fundraising to help. I've also helped in some small way. As I'm talking, we are trying to see how we can mobilize funds to put up a theater. But the support from central government.
What is holding it? Do you know? Have you had consultations with those who matter, the regional director of health, for example?
Not directly, but with the district health service, yes. And the impression I have is that it's just a budgetary issue. And the second thing is that we are not getting the kind of personnel that are needed ready to move there. You know, it's just at the border of Burkina Faso. It's considered rural, deprived. And the kind of people who need to be there to get things done rather prefer to be in more endowed areas. So personnel is also a problem, apart from the fact that...
But Honourable, you're in Parliament with the Minister for Health. Have you engaged him on a one-on-one conversation to say, yo, Mr. Kwekumenu, this is it. 2015, and we're in 2018, no show. Can you come to our aid? Because lives are being lost on a daily basis.
Let me say that I don't think that communities really need to be on the begging side of things. It's the responsibility of central government to ensure
but if they are failing,
I'm saying that it's the basic responsibility of central government to respond to the needs of every community. So once this case is officially known, what I can do is to lobby. So I've written to the Minister and the Ghana Education Service. I'm doing follow-ups.
Ghana Health Service, you mean?
The Ghana Health Service. I'm trying to do follow-ups just to speed up the movement of resources to the
Where
area.
have we got into? I'll come to Bright to tell me some stories from Bongo, but where have we got into, Honourable? And can I respectfully ask that you make this a personal project?
Of course.
To see it to fruition?
Of course. It's at the core of my health planning for the place. That's why I have even done special efforts to help with supplies and to help towards the building of the theater. And as I'm talking now, I'm just hoping that if the common fund does its side of the bargain by paying us, which they haven't, a lot of those resources will go into developing that health facility.
Senior Bright, so you were in Bongo. Let's turn our attention now to Bongo. Tell me, what did you see?
Well, Bongo is a rich district.
Is it?
It is.
Edward Baha, is your constituency rich?
You shouldn't give that impression.
It is.
The MP says no.
And I'll tell you why. There's a way the district can be rich. Let's assume that it has what it takes to get rich. The road that we showed in that story links Burkina Faso. Now, we're told by custom officials at Namo, the border post, that if that road is properly fixed, tarred, economic activity on that stretch will improve.
Right.
And that will mean money to the assembly. And that's why I said the district
they are rich.
Is rich. But for now, the district is poor because the road is in that state. Some trucks can't even use the road. In fact, last year, the assembly said it had to close the road because it was dangerous. In fact, if you put a truck of a certain axle weight, I guess
it will come down.
It will come down.
Honorable.
So maybe that's
why you think.
And that's the road on the screen.
That's the road there. Interesting. So, Honorable Edward Barr, Bright says your community is rich. I saw you nodding when he said if the road is tarred, we will drive economic activities there. What do you know about this road and what are we doing towards it?
Thank you very much and good morning to your viewers. I think that first and foremost, this road initially had been classified as a feeder road.
Right.
And on the basis of that, it fell under the Ghana feeder routes, and they were supposed to be taking care of that. But we realized that the volume of vehicles that go through that road were said that you needed to upgrade the road into a highway.
Right.
For obvious reasons. From Bongo through that road to Ouagadougou, the capital, is shorter than using Paga.
Oh,
so
really?
for economic reasons, most vehicles would like to go through
save more
if you use that road. So one of the things that was done, I remember that's the beginning of 2016, was that we officially wrote, and when I say we, I mean the assembly, officially wrote to central government asking that road be upgraded into a highway.
What was the response?
Bills of quantities were made, road designs were done, which also meant that we needed to change the whole culverts. If you went through that road, you would have seen that there were a number of culverts there.
Yes, there were other
culverts that were down. You needed to change all those ones. Government accepted that. And actually, there was an advert to get people to come
to
here
bid
for that. In the meantime, under the Ghana Social Opportunities Project, that GSOP, that's a World Bank project, they also decided that, look, in the meantime, what they needed to do was to at least improve the nature of the road. So they brought it up. But when they got bridges like this, they couldn't, because this was a capital-intensive project. So that project could not take care of these ones. Right. So, as we speak, I agree with
Bright that you are rich.
If you construct that road, and you properly construct the market, the Namor market, and you have a proper border, what it then means is that even the market in Yelwongo, which is the market post the
we know the problem. We don't have a lot of time, though. What is the way forward?
The way forward is this. In November, I officially invited the Minister of Roads and Highways to Parliament to give me an update of this. He told me that, yes, they were still looking into it and seeing how, because there was no money syndrome. I decided again, the first week of February, this month, I called him back on the same road.
What was the response?
The same response. The same response.
So you've been lobbying, but help is not coming.
It's not coming. And so if you go to the Hanzadna, the parliamentary Hanzadna, it's captured both in November and in February on this current state of the road.
So you're right. The chief executive, Honorable Peter Ayimbe, also confirmed that indeed, like the member of parliament said, the road has been advertised, and they are waiting patiently to see when a contractor will get to site. So indeed, they're on the same path. The issue now is how to get the funding to get the contractor to begin work. And it's very, very critical, because when the rains starts, and if the rains are heavy, that portion of the road could cave in, and that means a total cutoff.
This conversation is part of our Missions Ghana project, which is supported by the Star Ghana project and funding from Danida, UK Aid, and the European Union. Yeah, but I want to come to Honorable Rudolph, but you had a quick interjection.
No, I just wanted to say that, look, even as we speak now, seriously speaking, it's not, when we talk of even just Land Cruisers, not all Land Cruisers can go through there. So talking about even big vehicles is a no-go. You can't.
Now, the bigger picture is that our constituents are not happy about this. Yes. They are not comfortable. And it's gratifying to know that you are neighboring constituencies, really. I want your commitment on this particular matter and perhaps timelines, if we can. I'll start with you, Honorable Rudolph. So I'm worried about the hospital, the health facility. And already you are pushing some funds into it. But for how long can you do that? So in terms of timelines and to get the government to perform, what's your plan?
In fact, the situation at the hostel is so dire that what is the time is that there is no time. The resource gatekeepers will have to move resources as early as possible. I think if it's even tomorrow, I'll be very excited.
Right.
They should remember that there are even neighboring communities in Burkina. They patronize the Paga facility. And the more they delay, the more things will run down. If you go and see even where newly delivered babies sleep, you
where do they sleep?
In fact, they share the same place with the women.
Wow.
And any time there is an outbreak, you can't even guarantee that these newborns are safe.
Will not get it. I saw a foundation on the screens, that something that Senior Bride brought. Is that a project that has stalled?
It's one of the key projects that has stalled. In fact, there is no major infrastructure there. There's even no laboratory, something you can call a laboratory. There's no theater. What they showed was the foundation for the theater, which has stalled. And there are many other facilities, that just stagnated at a certain point, and we are seeing no progress at all. That's part of the fact that the community itself is making efforts to raise funds. The speed with which central government is responding is very slow.
Can we respectfully task you to raise this again on the floor of Parliament?
Of course.
This week?
Of course, one way by which we can draw attention, we will do that.
Right, thank you. Honorable Bawa, so let me come to you now. Finally, this is it. This is the problem. And we know that we're sitting on gold, but we are not mining it, as Senior Bright says. What's the plan way forward?
You see, first of all, let me state that the plan is to still pressurize central government, because generally we can't use the IGF in Bongo to do that. The common fund that comes to Bongo cannot also do that. So central government will have to embrace this. What we need to do is to push that. The fear I have in this is that I can't give timelines, because you see, you give timelines when you have control over all the factors.
Right.
There are parts of the factors you don't have control over when it comes to release.
Have you lost hope?
I have not lost hope. I don't lose hope easily. So what I'm going to do, just as I told you, in February, in November I did one in February. I give them a space of about 2 months. I will go back again. And for me, in all these things, I want a situation where you, the minister, you openly come, because when you speak to Ghanaians, everybody listens. So for the third time, if I'm going to ask that, it will not be that, look, this is something I'm not putting so much, and I'm making Ghanaians to know that this is going to, this is what the problem we're going through. And I also want to thank your platform, because your viewership is huge.
Right.
I believe maybe the Minister for Roads and Highways is watching.
Oh, they watch.
Maybe any other influential person is watching, and that they should come on board, because see, this is not just because it's Bongo, it is Ghana. Can you imagine that you have such a road that connects Ghana to Burkina Faso? What type of business? Even in terms of customs, the revenues that will come to central government, you see, it can pay for itself. So they should look at that.
I thank you. Senior Bright, you have the final thoughts on this one. You've been traveling to the town. You see these things.
I'm happy that the DCE is prepared to work with a member of parliament. He's prepared to work with all stakeholders. In fact, he told me that he's appealed to the roads minister. He's appealed to everyone he thinks he can get to, to come to the aid of the Bongo district and get that road fixed. And we're hoping. He said he's very, very hopeful that in the shortest possible time, something miraculous would happen, and that road will
that's a good sign. Thank you very much. Brighton Anamfo is a senior journalist here at the Media General. He's been on the missions beat, and the Honorable Rudolph Amigo Etigo is the MP for Chiana Paga, and the Honorable Edward Bar is the MP for Bongo. This conversation has been made possible as part of our Missions Ghana project here at TV3, and is funded by the Star Ghana project, also with the support from UKA, Danida, and the European Union. We'll take a break, return with some more here on New Day. So welcome back. We're wrapping up the conversation here. Tuesday we'll be back again, and as I said earlier, today is the birthday of a lovely woman. That's my mom. It's her birthday today. She's 68 and growing strong.
Yep.
Yeah. So you know, ever since my father's demise, I think I've taken over. You know.
And I think you're doing a good job.
Yeah,
Keep it up.
Yeah. So happy birthday to her, and to birthday as well belated to Mrs. Maud Lamte. Auntie Maud, was your birthday, and Akosuakoa Yvonne of Pudding Masters, happy birthday to you, and to Shasha Tego, and to Kekeli Darlington Tate, your birthday. So many birthdays, and it's Petra's husband's birthday as well. Yes, Senna Samoa is your birthday.
Nice.
We wish you that you have one more child, and
hey.
Huh?
Jaden, and that's Jaden and Joy's father.
Yes, but
Happy
if they can have Jaden, Joyce, they can have Jason.
I'm the one who would name their children. But
Anyway, so we'll wrap up the conversation. Thank you very much for watching.
Certainly.
On behalf of the rest of the team, enjoy and be good. We'll see you tomorrow. But Ebony's tribute from Media General comes up shortly. Enjoy your day.
Woni eteshie akebi echakegbele nano yawami akoshono kwemono sanye nawa. Just like karma, death never loses an address. Throw back Owusu answer. The Williams, Bone Chaka, now our very own vibrant songstress. Lord, can there be an encore of Lazarus' situation? For I feel this soul story has a comma. So what's next after this punctuation? Hey, this life safe. Today you happy, tomorrow is all tragic. Where are you, Queen? See, we refuse to call you an ancestor. I've got good news for you. The Pharisees are now calling you a champion. They are chanting, Eboniele Ogboni. Let's appreciate the living. None is perfect. We all can't cast the first stone. Tomorrow nobody knows. There's a reason for our existence, and there's a mission to be accomplished. Charlie, time no day. Kinata, please put those words on replay. Mourn the dead, but pray for your own sins. R.I.P. Frankie. Heard you were a bestie. Achu. Aho. Can I get ahoya? Did I hear a scream of silence? By this peace we recommend you to the Lord of hosts. May you be recruited in the Lord's army. Right on, Ebony. What a month to choose to live. The number of working days in it is the number of existing years you chose to live. If you can hear me, do me a favor. When you get to heaven, please join the choir. Other heavenly hosts will be streaming live when you sing. There's a note